What's up, everybody? Okay, so today we're going to continue to build out the home page of YWAM Lyon, and we're going to start building the second section. And I also want to talk about lining up buttons because it's kind of a weird system, I would say, for Elementor, but it kind of is because of the way that the styling code works, that they have to do it this way. So I'll show you how to line up two buttons and center them because a lot of times you want to give the viewer two options. Say, scroll further down or contact us or go to this page, DTS training or secondary schools. And you can actually do multiple buttons in a row centered. And so let's get into it. As you can see, on the YWAM Lyon homepage site, it's not looking like our homepage. So let's fix that. So the way that we get the homepage to show up on the homepage is by going into the dashboard. Quick way is just hovering over this. You got your little admin bar when you log in. Click dashboard. I always like to create a new tab, so I just pull it and drag it in like that. So and then what we're going to do is go to settings, general, or it might be, I always forget which one it's in, sorry. Writing, reading. It's in reading. Okay, here we are. So, and then what we want to do is change it from your latest post to a static page and just click home for that because that's the page we've been building on. For the post page, I've been leaving it blank because it doesn't really matter that much in the way that you build with Elementor to select that. So there you have it. We'll go back to this page and refresh it. Command R or maybe Control R on Windows. And there you have it, the site that we've been building. Come on an adventure with God. That's what we're doing. Adventure in website design. So what we want to do is edit this page. And so if you're ever on the site looking at a page that you want to edit and you want to edit it with Elementor, you would just click right here, edit with Elementor. But what happens is there's a drop down and you can also edit the header. So it'll pull in any element that's like a global sort of template file for you. So you can edit that if you want as well. So for now, we'll just keep on working on this home page. And then, yeah, I'll get into some of the sort of intricacies or quirkiness of buttons with Elementor. So as you can see, this button has a full width. So if I add another button by right-clicking and saying duplicate, or you can do Command D on here, as you can see, it's stacked. So the problem is, how do I get it together? I don't want it stacked. I want it side by side. And without getting too complicated, there's a few ways that elements are I guess, positioned, or the box around them, the properties of that box. So the box right now is probably just like a regular div with a display block in the CSS. What we want to do, though, is make sure it's an inline block. And so if we click on this button, click on the pencil to edit it, and usually it'll default to wherever you were last. So, but if it's a new element, it'll be on the content. So what we need to do is go to Advanced and scroll down to Positioning and change this to Inline. And now you can see that little blue box is just around the button. And what we want to do is actually add a little bit of margin around it. So the difference between margin and padding usually is that margin will give some space around the outside of an element, and padding will be the space around the inside of the element. What we want to do is just add maybe a 10 pixel buffer around this button. And so we can do that with either padding or margin at this point for this particular element. But generally, margin is on the outside of element, padding is on the inside. And so we have this padding on this button, and we're gonna center the button now. And the way that you do that is actually to select the sort of, I guess, column right here that it's in, because usually you're always in a column, even if it's just one column. The pattern is section, column, and then element. Okay, so we see these, now that I'm on column, we have a vertical align and a horizontal align. And so what we want to do, because it's horizontal, we're going to say center. So that's going to center everything in this. So if you don't want to center this text, say it's centered left, what you can do is add an intersection. And then an intersection, when you drop it on, it'll give you two columns. You can actually just delete this and then pop that in there. And there you have it. And then I'll have to actually go back to this intersection column and go center. And let's say I want this button also to, or this other button to have the same characteristics. So if I go copy, let's see, paste style. Now it's got the same style. I just need to drag it in. And there you have it. You have the two buttons side by side. And that's how you do it. You don't necessarily need this intersection, but just in case you want to keep things separate and you want this to be centered, or I mean, sorry, if you want it to not be centered, then you'll have to create an intersection. I'll start working on this section next. And what I thought is to kind of continue with this sort of theme of adventure. And so what I'm going to do is add a little header. So I'm going to click on this to get to all the elements, pull this over, and now here's my header. I can edit. Default tag is at H2. If I change that, it changes the size as we've put in our global settings. So what I'm going to say is something like, where do you want to begin your adventure? Something like that. And I'll let you guys be the creative ones. Okay, and so we have this, and so we want to give them some options. And so the best way to do that is to create an intersection. And it's giving us two options, so we'll start with that and see if we can come up with a third, but two options is just fine as well. So looking down, there's tons of these different elements that you can use. I'm going to do a call to action. And so you can see that this is a classic skin for the call to action. If we change it to cover, you have a header, you have a button, you have a little bit of a description text if you want. And you can even add a ribbon like new or something like that, which is kind of cool. And then when you go to style, you can actually change all these things. So ribbon color, change it to something that's our color that we've been using for our brand. So we can see here that we have a header. Let's just say short-term volunteer, or mission builder, I guess you could say. And then what happens if you delete a whole section? It just gets rid of it, which is kind of nice. Don't mind that. Google Translate thing. And then even with the button, if you delete that, then it's gone, and the whole thing can be a button. So if I add a link to another page, then it'll make the whole thing a button. One thing about links that I want to share is that the dynamic link is a really powerful function. And this is the way that I usually create the links, is when I click here and I go to internal URL, then you click this little cog here and go to content. And then you can search for the page. So I can't remember what pages we have. Training, maybe? Training. So we'll just say they go to training for now. What this does is if you ever change the URL, say like to ywamleon.com/training now instead of training, if I had just entered that in right here, it would be, or if I just started typing training here, it'll autofill it, but it's giving you like an absolute link. So what this means is, if I change this page title, it's not going to, it's going to be a broken link. So that's why the dynamic links are good. I think what it does is it links to the page ID, which never changes even if your page URL permalink changes. So that's a little in-depth, but it'll really help you in the long run if you create the dynamic link instead. And so, yeah, that's what we'll do just right now. Training. All right. So we got that there. We obviously need, oh yeah, okay, here's the button option. So apply link on whole box. So that's going to make this whole box a link instead of the button that doesn't exist. So, which I like better, but other people could have a button. It's kind of personal design preference. All right, so we have the option here to add an image. Once again, we can search pixels and say yard work. Why not? Let's see what pops up under yard work. Gardening. Okay. That's kind of a cool one of a guy planting some seeds. So we'll get that guy. Pretty much my workflow. Grab it, drop it on my little automator script. Go back to the media, find the image on my desktop, rename it short term, volunteer image, something of that sort, to get some SEO in there. Click and drag it on top. All right, there we go. You can add some alt text as well, and that also helps with accessibility. Alt text is basically what is read out on screen readers for people that are visually impaired. And because of that is why Google bumps up your site if you add a lot of alt text. So, but we're going to insert that. All right, you can see there it is. There's this sort of hover functionality to it all, which you can under style, hover effects. We got grow. You know, you don't necessarily need all that. So there's a hover effect on the style or on the background and on the title. So the content I turned off. Then you can also do zoom out. So if you want, there you go, zoom out. And you can overlay a color if you want. So if we wanted to add this blue, and then you can either add a little opacity to it, that's this little slider, as you can see, or you can add a CSS filter to it. So, you know, normal, I want it like that. And then when they hover it over, we don't want any blur. Sorry. Oops, I need more. Okay, so we got blur here. CSS filter. 0. There we go. That's the look we're looking for. You know, it's a little too much movement for me. I like subtle animations, but we'll just leave it like that for now. You can kind of get the idea and play around. And there's other filters as well. So say we want to get rid of our blur, but you know, we want to add a blend mode, multiply. There you go. So it kind of adds the color, whatever color this is, over top. And I like to think of multiply of just kind of like blending it in. And so, you know, if it's a color, the darker color gets darker, the lighter color gets a little darker as well. There's a lot of different options here, obviously. Some crazy ones. These are pretty much exactly the same as like Photoshop and Adobe Illustrator. So there you have that. And then what we're going to do, make things easy, is duplicate it, drag it into the second column, and there we have it. As you can see, there's a little bit of padding around each one of these. And what you can do, even around these ones, so, and that is the column gap. So if you see a little bit of spacing and you don't want it, just say no gap here. and now it's together. And now there's this outer one, which is actually this section's, which you can say no gap as well. And then it's going to the edge, anyways, of the div. If you wanted the content full width, you could do that as well. That goes right there. And this, yeah, you might have to do on this one too. So if I update this page, there you go. So it's not looking the greatest. We'll have to think through some styling on that. We obviously don't want, we want some, want it to be boxed. So if I say boxed and then do it again, it's going to refresh over here. Okay, you got these two options that are kind of together. Let's take this gap off again here. Okay, and then what if we want to round our, so if I click on this call to action widget and go to box option under style, I believe, or maybe it's the content. There should be a spot for the border radius. Let's see. Okay, there it is. So sometimes you got to kind of search a bit for where they're putting the sort of styling. But if you want to add a little border radius, and then also if you want to add a little drop shadow with some blur, actually, you know what? I can go to hover. So this is the border style for hover. Add a little blur here so that when they hover over it, they really see that that's the option. And then if I want that same style to be on this one, all I have to do is hit copy and then paste style. And then there you have it. So that's kind of a nice quick way to transfer styles from one element to another. All right, so we have this section. I think I had set it before to fit the screen, obviously. We don't need that. We actually just need default. What I'm going to do is on this whole section, I'll add a margin top and bottom of like 75-ish, 100 pixels. Like I said, I like a little bit of breathing room just to help people digest information. All right, and so, you know what? I'm thinking I might even add a little bit of space. You can add some column gap to that, and as you can see, it added a little space equally around everything. So that's looking a little better. You know, I think it's good enough for, you know, what we're doing right now. Well, one last thing was maybe to change this header color to white, like that. And then, this is another thing. So what I did on accident was, here's the difference in margin and padding in application. So margin is right there. So if I change this color for this section to the blue, say I do this blue, dark blue, as you can see, you got this white space above it and below it. But I actually want this padding. I want this margin to be padding, so I'm going to add that down here, and I'm going to have to unlock this so that I can just do two values. And now you can see that, and I can take off margin. So there we go. It's looking a little better. I could change a little bit of that style. I'm not super happy with it, but there you go. It's getting there. It's getting there. So now we have these two sections. Obviously, we need to rename this to, or sorry, not sections, but call to actions to discipleship training school. There you go. Oops, I did one caps and one not caps. So I can actually adjust that in style if I go right here and just make this transform uppercase so that they both are uppercase. Copy, paste, oops, paste style. There we go. All right, so that should be good for now. 20 minutes, went a little long, but that's all right. Hope you learned something. Let me know if you have any questions, and we can keep on rolling.